Hi, everyone. My name is Dylan Maxwell. I am from the York County School of Technology. My role there is as the Career Services Coordinator. So what I do is I assist students from the enrollment process all the way through the completion of their program into a job placement type role. Today, my presentation is being recorded, but I would still like to deliver, all the information that I would typically do in a live presentation form to you. The presentation title is Financial Aid. How will I pay for school? It's a big question that often faces students, and it's probably the biggest hurdle that me in a role of admissions often sees for students. So I'd like to kind of take it through step by step, providing some information, and then as well go forward about how to actually complete the financial aid or the FAFSA. So applying for financial aid. FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It's the first step in applying for financial aid at any school that you would want to go to. Most financial aid offices will reach out to you either the moment that you submit an application, or they will have already received your financial aid if you've completed it prior to applying. It's a one size fits all type application, so you can do just one application and apply to about 10 different schools all at once if you would choose to. There are federal and state financial aid available for students, so that is something that you would be able to access through FAFSA. Why FAFSA is important? It provides financial aid money that will help students pay for their college expenses. So things such as room and board at some schools, textbooks, tuition, lab fees, tech fees, are all things that financial aid could cover, just dependent on the situation in the school that you are looking to attend. There's also things such as grants and scholarships that would be available on top of those student loans. Grants is always the best thing to get as a student because it then helps you get free money. So grants are money that you would not pay back. It's money that is going to be just taken off your tuition and the immediate expenses of going to school. Scholarships, there's many different opportunities out there. Oftentimes for high school students, there's some that are district-wide, so just your school district would have access to those. There's also online scholarships and more specific scholarships for different demographics or different career paths that students are looking to get into. Every student, or almost every student, is eligible for some type of financial aid. Not every student is able for grant money, just dependent on financial history and family contribution, but every student is able to take out a student loan unless other circumstances. Students must apply every year. So if you are not going to a one-year school like the York County School of Technology would be, you would then apply each semester so that you can re-enter yourself for more grant money and more student loans. Schools that are under that one-year threshold, it's just a one-time application that sets your aid for the entire year. So the types of financial aid that you could see yourself receiving, obviously federal aid through FAFSA. That's usually your student loans that would come out for the entire year to kind of put them to cover the balance up front. Additionally, you could see state aid. What we mean by that is PA TIP. PA TIP money is a portion of money that the state of Pennsylvania would specifically set aside to help students in going back to school. How they determine what programs and what schools get that money is based off of a high priority occupation list. So things such as nursing, medical assistant, welding, HVAC are all types of programs that are in high demand right now for working professionals. And they encourage students to go back by giving them this additional grant money as an incentive for going into the career field that is going to best help the state of Pennsylvania fill the jobs that we are lacking on right now. And then there's local and institutional aid. Those are like those scholarships that I would have mentioned, or additional monies that the school might be granted, such as alumni scholarships or grants that were funded to the school. So the biggest thing, and I've already mentioned grant money, it would come out as the federal Pell Grant. This would be across the board to any school. That is free money directly from the federal government. It is decided based off of income from the previous year's taxes, as well as other circumstances like how many children might be in the house, how many household members are going to college, and items like that. Then you have federal student loans. It's oftentimes broken down into two separate loans, the subsidized loan and an unsubsidized loan. The subsidized loan, you could see yourself not paying any interest on. Typically, for a student over the age of 24, they will get about $9,500 in student loans. With that, $3,500 will be the subsidized loan amount. So if you had an overage, we would look to send back the unsubsidized, because that is the money that will accrue interest. So over time, it will accrue some interest on that loan, which will usually come out in the portion of about $6,000. If a student is under the age of 24, they would get $5,500 in subsidized and unsubsidized together. In that case, it sometimes won't cover the amount of the tuition. Another loan that we work with at our school, and other schools I know also work with, would be a Parent Plus loan. This is just the parent taking out some loan money in order to assist the student in having additional funds so that they don't have to pay a large amount for their payment plan throughout the year. And then, of course, there's also alternative loans that you could take out through your bank to cover the balance if you were approved based on your credit. So again, subsidized loan, government will pay the interest while you're in school during the 6-month grace period, whereas an unsubsidized loan, the government will not pay your interest while you are in school and during your 6-month grace period. However, you will have the option to be able to pay that interest as you go along so that you're not having it accrue over time and then it kind of be there for when you have that 6-month grace period over and you receive your first bill for those student loans. And again, Parent Plus loans, just the dependent student under 24, parents can take out that money to better assist their student in going back to school. So for federal student loans, the interest rates would be fixed. You're looking at an interest rate of somewhere around 6.8%, I believe. You would also get a 6-month grace period for when you either complete the program or drop below half-time. So if you were to withdraw from your program and not finish, you would have 6 months from the date of your last marked day of attendance until you would get your first bill. The same will go is you would get, after your last day of attendance upon graduation, you will have 6 months in order to save up money and find a job and things like that prior to ever receiving a bill from your loan provider. This is really helpful, especially for some of the programs that are currently out there, because if there's a high job rate, you're able to find employment quickly, start making payments ahead of time if you would like, or save that money until you would potentially first have to make a payment. It makes for a smooth transition because you have that time to kind of get your feet under you after you go through the long process of completing school. Usually you will have 10 years to pay back your student loan. Depends on the payment plan that you would choose. So 10 years is typically the maximum amount that you would want to pay, or that you would have to pay off your student loan. However, students in the past have customized that to maybe make it a 5-year plan or however they would want to do it. You would work that out through your loan provider by giving them a call and just letting them know the amount that you would want to pay per month. There is a minimum, but you can set payments outside of that if you would like. So how to apply for financial aid? You would first want to just go on to the FAFSA website and start the process to complete the free application for federal student aid. Once you were to complete that, you would then want to complete what's called a master promissory note and loan entrance and exit counseling. I'll explain both of those when we get to that portion of the walkthrough. But then the final step would also be looking into maybe alternative loans or the Parent Plus loan for students. So state aid, examples of some state aid that I may not have covered yet. FIA state grant. It's free money from the state of Pennsylvania that assists students going to an associate degree or higher. So students at York County School of Technology, due to being there for only 1 year, would not qualify for this. This grant specifically is for students going for an associate's degree or higher. So a 2-year program or more to assist them in getting some additional aid as they go. A big thing that I like to say is any student going to a program underneath 2 years, they could expect to still get emails from FIA. There is nothing that you are held accountable to have to do because it will not affect you if you do it or you don't. But sometimes students come to me with concerns about not understanding why they're getting those emails. It's just kind of a spam type email that students would receive. Additionally, PA tip, again, it goes to specific programs that are in high demand or high priority occupations. Examples I have there, welding, HVAC, plumbing, but we also see it for a lot of the medical programs and professions that are out there right now. Local and institutional aid. So the Pennsylvania CareerLink is definitely a good resource. Hopefully you're at one of those locations now listening to this recording. So they have great resources to help anywhere from short-term trainings as well as some additional assistance with maybe some full-time trainings if you were to qualify. Other scholarships, so free money from organizations and companies, things that I've seen students get scholarships from before: churches, employers, local organizations, or they applied on the internet. Biggest thing to keep in mind if you're not getting it from somebody you already know, like getting it from a boss or a church, just keep in mind you would never want to give your social security number. You never want to pay to send the application because those two things just don't add up. They don't need that social security number to tell you if you've been awarded a scholarship, and you should never have to pay in order to get free money back in return. So there are some scams that go out there because they know they can capitalize on students looking for some additional help to get to the career place that they want to be. So how do I get started? I would like to show you guys all some videos here real quick in regards to the myths about financial aid, how to complete financial aid, and then what would happen following that. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the first video about the myths of financial aid.
Federal student aid is a
So the biggest aspect that I like to cover when I show students the myths about financial aid is please just ask the financial aid office at your school or another professional. They will often be able to debunk those myths pretty quickly. Things such as my family makes too much money for me to go back to school, or I make too much money to go back to school. You can still get some assistance in order to go back to school and get that additional training dollars. So that is typically something that will prevent students from doing it. Now, they might not get grant money, but they will get some assistance to help them not have to pay the full tuition out front and make a payment plan of higher payments per month. So the next video that we will go to will be the completing the FAFSA, and it'll kind of walk by step through that process. So again, another big aspect here in regards to that video doesn't seem like much, but the creation of your username and password is a huge thing. It's something that I run into a lot with students because once you create that, that would be your password and username for ever going forward as far as financial aid would be concerned. So if you go to school and then you decide you want to go back, that would still be the way that you would enter the system there. Where we get hung up is sometimes students will forget those things, and the only way to retrieve your password is through a cell phone or an email. And those can change pretty frequently as well. So things like changing your phone number or not knowing the password to log into your email, those are items that get us hung up, and our students kind of run into some issues there. So I always say save it in multiple locations, make sure that you have easy access to it, or go to something that you know you will use pretty regularly and can keep good tabs of. The other aspect is they mentioned transferring information from the IRS to your FAFSA. That will make the FAFSA a lot easier. It is called the IRS Data Retrieval Tool. The best way to access that is to just get a copy of your tax returns, look at the address that's on the top, and make sure you enter that in exactly how it was. And most of the times it will connect and it will transfer all that information directly onto your FAFSA. Instead of you having to go and plug away at the numbers to identify how much you made, income-wise, how much your assets would be, other items like that, it's easier just to take it through the IRS and have them add all that information in there, because then they know that it's accurate because it is what's already been given. So the final video is just going to show what happens following the completion of the FAFSA. Okay, so in that final video, two other aspects that I'd like to highlight. The biggest one is the section about the award letter. When you get that award letter, that is kind of your holy grail. That's the thing that I will always refer my students back to if they have questions about financial aid, because it tells you exactly what you can expect to get. It doesn't tell you quite when you were expected to get that money, but it will show you a kind of a map as far as what you can expect so that you can better adjust yourself to how that plays into the tuition that you would owe to the school. Most schools will also give you a payment plan if you owe that, or if you have an overage in your student loans, they would also let you know how much you could expect to receive outside of what is already being paid for you. Another big aspect is just something that I see school to school, and I like to prepare students on, is sometimes you will just have an estimate to go off of. That's because offices get overwhelmed sometimes with the number of FAFSAs that are being completed, that they really are only able to process the aid of students that apply. Now, those estimates are very close. They're ballpark numbers to show students what they believe they could qualify for. And those questions can often be addressed by the financial aid office at the college you're looking to go to. So feel free just to reach out to them. They might not be able to process it right away, but if they see that you are interested, sometimes that does help them as far as getting you an award letter so that you can compare and contrast what different school offerings have for you. So now at this point, I'd like to take you through how to apply for financial aid. You should have a handout in front of you. That handout is important because if you're a visual learner and you like to have things right in front of you to fill out, you can go step by step through this form, filling out some of the questions that we will also go over. That way, when you sit in front of the computer screen and you get to certain sections, you can already have the questions answered. It's just a simple click of a button. So feel free to work along with that as we go. It should be just a front and back sheet here. So when you first get into the FAFSA website, the home screen will look similar to this. It will give you two options, one for if you have already had a FAFSA, or another would be if this is your first time login. First thing that you'll have to do is create that FAFSA ID. So the item that I mentioned, saving that username in different spots and locations and making sure that it's something you will definitely remember. You would have to have your own. If you're under the age of 24, you would also have to have your parents make a FAFSA ID as well so that they can also sign off and provide information for your FAFSA, because you would be considered a dependent student, where as a student over 24 would be considered independent in FAFSA's terms. You will sign electronically on the FAFSA, so that's how that username comes into effect. It helps you complete your loan paperwork, and it would go out to the loan providers. So there's two different websites. The first one that I'm concerned with is the one on the left, that fafsa.gov. The second one is the studentloans.gov. That would be a website that we will visit at the back end of this presentation, because that's where you complete the final steps of making sure that your aid is sent to the correct place, and they have all the verification information completed. The same password would be used for both your fafsa.gov and studentloans.gov login. So you wouldn't have to create two different logins for that. This screen is pretty much just demonstrating what that initial login page is going to look like. There will be some special characters and things that you have to use. You will provide an email as well as a phone number. I would suggest the best thing to do, because there will be a lot of back and forth as far as financial aid would go. Some students in the past have just completed a brand new email so that they can dedicate it strictly to financial aid. So it's not lost in all the millions of spam emails sometimes we can get, and we're able to have clear communication and be able to look back and find those documents. It will also ask for things such as your social security number, date of birth. Make sure that you're just accurately entering that information. Double, triple check it, because if you have the wrong number, it will unfortunately not allow you to continue on. It will also ask you some security questions as well. So things that if you forget your email or your phone number, you can always come back and enter those. I do just preface that by letting students know that you would have a 30-minute wait period if you have to unlock your account by using those challenge questions, but make sure they're things that are very simple. So my go-to one is, what color was your first car? A lot of students remember that one off the top of their head. It's not something that they could have two different answers for. Those are the types of questions that I would most likely want to lean to. After you complete all those steps and get done with the challenge questions, it will send you a text code verification. So that's why you'd want to enter the correct phone number. You would just plug that in. And once you click next, it will also send you an email certification. So it will verify that you both have connection through phone and email. And then you'd be good to start the FAFSA process. You would just go back out to the main menu. You would log back in with both your username and your password. And then it would take you to a pane that would look similar to this. So this would be for the 2020-2021 FAFSA. You would click there to begin. You can revisit this at any point. The reason for that is you would be able to create a save key. Typical save key that I like to use for students is the first 4 of your birthday. Way it keeps you uniform. You can always think it's just the first 4 of my birthday. So 0322 or whatever it may be. And you can re-enter that if you would forget it. You just need to have the correct zip code that matches your home address. The first pane that you would get into once you log into your FAFSA and create that save code is just a student demographics tab. It'll have you re-enter an email address and other demographic information. The next pane would be your school information. So whether you were homeschooled, you completed a GED, completed high school, whatever it may be, you would just enter that information in there. And you would be able to provide all of that. It might ask you about college information, things as well. Selective service. So if you're taking out student financial aid, students would have to enroll in the selective service. If you're already enrolled, you could just check yes. If you are over the age of 27 and you have not been able to enroll, I just let students know that there will be paperwork sent to you, just trying to verify why it was that students weren't registered for selective service, and you just pretty much fill out the form, write what circumstances might have prevented you from being able to register for the selective service, and then mail it back right to the financial aid office, who will coordinate with FAFSA about getting that paperwork cleared for you. The high school name, you would just type in your high school and go from there. You can search it up through the city, or you can simply just type in all the demographic information. You don't need to find the exact school. After that, you would get to the school selection tab. This is where you could select up to 10 schools. Biggest thing to understand and ask your financial aid departments is what the federal school code is. You don't want to look up the school by name, or their name's a little bit different in FAFSA. It's good to have that school code so you can get the exact location of what to enter. For example, our school code would be 016526. It takes you directly to us, and it locates our school exactly, so that you're not sending your information to a location you wouldn't want to. Once you select those, you would just then move on and go from the student information tab by viewing the colleges, so that you can compare information about schools, such as average tuition and graduation rate, success rate, job placement rate. Those would all be listed in that bottom left corner. Housing plans, there's going to be 3 options that you would see for housing. So it would be an on-campus, so living in a dorm. Typically, some of your smaller schools like a HAC or a York County School of Technology, there would be no dorm living. So you would be then limited to either off campus. So if you live at an apartment on your own or with parent, if you're still living at home or whatever that may be. Dependency status. This is one that's most important for those students under 24, because you will be qualified for dependency, meaning you're dependent on your parents to help you in paying off some of those student bills and things of that nature. The most common one that would make a student independent is if they are under 24, but they have children. A lot of the different scenarios that you would be able to see down there are things that might not be as common. So things like both parents have been deceased, you were in the foster care system, member of the military is also another one that could be in there. So those are all types of things that would then be able to help students be able to claim independent status and get more loan money and items like that. There are special circumstances that could come up that would change the outcome of your FAFSA. The one at the top, the change in income or change in employment status, are usually the ones that change that up. What financial aid departments will do is they'll make a professional judgment. So if you were making $70,000 the year prior, and then were laid off from that job and you're now making substantially less, they would be able to see that differentiation and be able to assist you with that, because you're entering last year's taxes. They can't hold you accountable for last year's income if it does not match up with what you're doing this year. So those are things that you would just address with your financial aid office so that they can make that professional judgment and show FAFSA a good case for why you might need additional money. Also, changes in marital status or parent marital status, unusual dependent care expenses. So you have an aunt or niece or somebody move into the house that now you are taking care of on top of maybe some children. That is something that could also assist you, because if you are providing support for those people, it would only make sense for FAFSA to then be able to help you more financially in going back to school. For students that are dependent, they would then have to enter in parent demographics. So about the same exact thing that they did in the previous pane is what they would do here. The only other thing that they would have to do is also create a new FAFSA ID for their parents, which would be one of the first steps in entering their demographic information. Defining a household, there's about 3 options here of things that you would go through. So the first would be how many children are living in the house, or how many children your parents have. So if you're the parent, you just list how many kids that you have that you provide more than 50% support for. And then if you are the child looking to get some financial aid, you would just talk about the amount of siblings that you have. Additional dependents, so people outside of your kids or your siblings that also live there. So if a cousin or a family friend has moved in and they're now a dependent because they're getting that support, you would want to list them there. And the bottom one is how many in the household are going to college. If it's just you, you would just put 1. But there's also circumstances where other siblings or a parent might be going to college and living in the same household. Here, right below here, I think you guys can see my little mouse moving, is the IRS data retrieval tool. That is where students would put in their parent income. If you are an independent student, it would just be for you. And you'll see that coming up here. But that will link up. You put in all the parents' information on that IRS retrieval tool, and it should be able to process it over to your FAFSA. It will probably cut 15 to 20 minutes out of the entire process, which is why I speak very highly of that process going forward. Saves you a lot of time and makes so that you have all the correct information there. Again, just going over the IRS data retrieval tool and kind of what it provides to the student. When you get in there, this is typically the screen that you will see. You would enter in all that information. Biggest one, again, I keep harping on it, is that address. Everything else usually goes pretty good. It's either address or the filing status. So you want to make sure that if you filed single, that is also reflected in here, because if there's a discrepancy between what you put on the FAFSA page and what you're claiming on the IRS retrieval tool, it will decline you. Also, students sometimes move pretty regularly, so just having the ability to obtain the actual address that is on your previous taxes is what will make it go through very smoothly. If it goes through, you'll be able to click that top of the 2 boxes, certifying that you would like your information to be transferred over and put onto your FAFSA. This will all happen in about a 30-second period. So as soon as you push transfer, it will just load real quick, and then all your information will be on the FAFSA. If you are not able to go through with the IRS data retrieval tool, here's some of the pages that you would see. So items such as listing the adjusted gross income, income earned from work, and federal benefit programs. So other monies that were coming into the household. Additional questions, which following that first pane, most of them will be zeros. But things that could come up is educational credits that are getting paid on behalf of you, child support, combat pay, untaxed income. So housing, food, living expenses, tax exempt interest, veterans, non-educational benefits, those types of circumstances could come up. You should be able to find those on your taxes or know the amount offhand. Again, you would go through the same portion for the student. If you were over 24, you would just have to do just this section yourself. When you get to the end, you would be able to then sign and submit by just re-entering in your username and password, and you can electronically sign that you would like to have your FAFSA completed. This is the biggest page. After you get through everything, it will take you to our confirmation. Where it's starred down there, it will say the estimate. You just want to click that drop down button and you would want to look. The two things you'll be able to see will be the loans that you could possibly qualify for and the Pell Grant. What you want is that EFC number is the expected family contribution. So it's saying how much could the family support a student in going back to school. And that will determine where the estimate lays when you click that drop down. So after you complete the FAFSA, it will take about 2 days for all your information to get processed. But at that point, the financial aid offices will be reaching out to you in order to help you complete the final steps needed for them to actually complete your award letter, which I'll go over here in a little. So what happens? You could possibly get verification paperwork. This is sometimes at a random draw. So things like getting selected to prove that you've completed high school, approved by showing your driver's license or ID card that you're actually the person that entered the information on there. They would require you to go to the school and meet with an individual to have it signed off and then scanned back to the financial aid office. There's also more intense verification paperwork. So like a household size form where they're checking who's all in the house with the student. And you would just have to denote, all those members that are living in the household together, or just validating income and seeing how you are paying bills and items such as that, dependent on the income that you are bringing in. So I usually brief students on that because it is luck of the draw or being unlucky in most cases, because you don't want to do another paper. But your offices should all have seen these papers before and be able to assist you going forward. The award letter, again, just the biggest aspect of financial aid. It tells you exactly what you're going to get, and it helps you really understand if going back to school is something feasible for you and something that you can obtain. Disbursements, they will give you disbursement dates. What I mean by a disbursement is that you will get a portion of your student loans throughout time. So it usually gets split into halves. So you get half of your student loans up front and half in the back. If you were just taking out enough to pay for your tuition and other fees, you wouldn't get anything. It would just send you basically a long receipt with a lot of $1,000 numbers on it, showing you what's happening in your account. That is not a bill. I always say that because students sometimes get anxious because they see all these $1,000 numbers and they think that it's the school billing them. It's not. It's just showing you what the federal government's doing to pay off your school for you while you're here. If you have an overage in your financial aid, you would be able to then pick up a check at either the front desk or by stopping by the financial aid office. You would sign out to your own name, and that would be your money as an overage in what you took out in financial aid. Repayment, So you'll have your loan provider reach out to you about starting the repayment plan. Most of the times it will happen a couple months into your schooling. And then if offices are able to help you get PA TIP grant money, they will reach out to you with the paperwork needed to be filed. I know our school tends to be very quick with this because we want to try to get that information to the state of Pennsylvania as fast as possible so we can get our students some more grant money in order to alleviate some of the financial burden of going back to school. So after the FAFSA submission, you will get an email saying that it was submitted, and so will the financial aid office. They will be notified right away that you've completed all the information that they requested you to do. It will also give you that estimate as well. Sometimes mistakes do happen when completing the FAFSA because it is a very lengthy form, and sometimes you might not be clear on how to answer certain questions. Those corrections can be made by just logging back into your FAFSA and handling those. Normally, your financial aid office will reach out to you to let you know what those corrections are, and we'll tell you exactly what you would need to do to go in there and fill those out. So the cost of attendance, how that is added up would just be, your tuition, books and supplies, room and board, transportation, and miscellaneous expenses. It's the estimated total of the entire educational experience, and it's going to be different per each school, which is going to make the financial aid you could possibly get different at each school. Expected family contribution, just calculated information from the FAFSA, including income, assets, and family size, just determining how much the family might be able to help a specific student. And then the biggest one is financial need. So the cost of attendance varies at each institution. The expected family contribution. So if you're able to get assistance from family members, it might be less likely that FAFSA gives you higher loan amounts or grant money. Financial aid is based off of the cost of attendance as well. Federal financial aid, the maximum Pell Grant, which is the free money, the money that I'm always hoping my students get, is $6,195. That will be the maximum for this upcoming school year, so 2020 through 2021. For the federal subsidized student loan, you're looking at about $3,500. It has a 4.53 fixed interest rate, but keep in mind that interest rate will be getting paid by the government, whereas the unsubsidized will have only a 4.53 that goes to the student. The government will not be assisting in paying off the fixed interest rate there. So guys, thank you for hanging in there with me. I apologize that this is not live. It is a recording, but I definitely want to make sure that I leave my contact information for you. I enjoy working with the CareerLink and all of its partners. So please feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call, stop in at the York location. I'd be more than happy if I'm available to assist you in answering any questions, just because financial aid can be confusing, especially if it's your first time doing it, but it will really assist you depending on the schools that you're choosing and programs you're looking to go into, get to where you want to be. That's kind of why I enjoy this presentation, and I hope you guys enjoyed it along with me. Thank you very much. Bye.